Hey, Shalom. Shalom Akim, of course, call Haloyim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders, the great millstone that rule and teach well. Peace and shalom to the Akim out there and the elect, which the elect consist of the men, women, and children selected to make it out of here for the coming nuclear destruction, all right? I'm the brother Zayan Allah of the DC camp coming at you with another video. You can see right here it says Trump threatens to restrict stadium deal with Washington Commanders if they don't change name back to Redskins. And remember, I don't know who the hell that is. And remember, all right, there was a big thing a couple years back about changing the name from the Redskins to something else because it was found out to be derogatory. All right, it was found out to be derogatory against who? The so-called Native Americans. We say so-called because that's not their biblical nationality. All right. The 12 tribes of Israel goes to what? The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? And they're in the scriptures. As a matter of fact, we're going to go to First Chronicles, the 5th chapter, and in verse 18, and it says, the sons of Reuben, all right, which we know as the Seminole Indians, and the Gadites, which we know as the North American Indians, the so-called North American Indians, all right, and the half tribe of Manasseh, which that'll be the so-called Cubans today. It says, of valiant men, men able to bear buckler and sword, and to shoot with bow, and skillful in war, okay, were 440,703 score that went out to the war. They were great men of war. All right, they were great men of war. You always see even movies today that kind of show how good they were with weapons, especially the bow and arrow. You know Gad is good with the bow and arrow, okay? You know Reuben is good with the bow and arrow and things of that nature, right? So these men were valiant men. Let's look up that word valiant. All right. Valiant. The word there's a ha, a ya, and a la. Chayal. Okay. Strength, might, efficiency, wealth, strength, ability, force, army, efficiency. So look at that. The different types of words that are used for that word chayal. You have army, man of valor, host, forces, valiant, strength, riches, wealth, power, substance, might, and strong. Let's get the Strong's definitions. A force, whether of men, means, or other resources, an army, wealth, virtue, valor, strength, able, ability, army, band of men, company, great forces, goods, host, might, power, riches, strength, strong, substance, trained, valiant. All right, valor. Valor. Okay, let's get that word. All right, let's get valor. All right, spelling valor. Value, worth. Okay, merit. Okay, to be strong. The Latin valere, be strong, be worth. Okay, the meaning courage is first recorded in 1580. So that's what type of men, all right, the Gadites and the Reubenites were and are. Let's not get it mistaken. And are. You see? Because why? Because you are of the sons of Yahweh Shemel Shai. That's why we say a lot of times you see brothers go out there with the sign and we'll say to the what? Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, and you get that who they are through biblical prophecy. And this is just one of the scriptures that shows you who they are. As a matter of fact, let me go get Genesis, the 48th chapter. This is Genesis 48. And I'll go down to Gad, Salakia. Okay. Salakia. Bear with me. It's Genesis the 49th chapter. Now 48, 49th. So I'm going to go down to Gad. It says Gad. All right. Now let me go up to verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. See, in the last days. Okay. We're living in the last days. All right. Gather yourselves together and hearken or hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Okay, and it goes into Reuben. Then it's going to go into what I really want is Gad. All right, Gad. All right, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Okay, so when you go to Gad, let's go to the translation comparison. Lord willing, it comes up. Um, Gad will be attacked by marauding bands, but he will attack them when they retreat. All right, let's go to AMP. As for Gad, a raiding troop shall raid him, but he shall raid at their heels and assault them victoriously. And that's what's going to happen ultimately. At the end, Gad is going to prevail. In these last days, he's going to prevail. But it's a time when Gad got taken down, right? When the so-called white man came over and took land from the North and Native American Indians, right? It was a time where they got overcome and taken down. They got placed on reservations. Treaties got reneged on. A whole lot of things happened with Gad. It's to the point where you really don't even see too many Gadites normally. Of course, they're around. You have brothers. You have Gadites within the camp. And in different camps throughout Israel, you have Gadites. Okay? But for the most part, a lot of Gadites are on a reservation and they're suffering. Why? Because that's what the so-called white man has done to them. It says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. All right? The very fact that you have Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving was really a celebration of the massacre of the North American Indians. Every time the North American Indians got taken down, they praised it and gave it a day of Thanksgiving. And then later on, it eventually turned to one day. It went from every time being praised days of Thanksgiving down to just one day in November. It used to be more. Every time the North American Indians were taken down, they gave it a day of Thanksgiving. They praised it as a day of Thanksgiving, I want to say. All right. And later on, like I said, then it changed to around November time frame. That's when they sell it. Slovakia. That's when they celebrate it. All right. Throughout the year. All right. At one time a year. All right. So let me go ahead and get this article. There's the reasoning for this this lesson in the spirit. Said Trump threatens to restrict stadium deal with Washington Commanders if they don't change name back to Redskins. All right, President Donald Trump on Sunday escalated his call for the Washington Commanders to change their name back to the Redskins, threatening to restrict the NFL team's stadium deal if they don't, though it's unclear how he would be able to. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Redskins, Washington Redskins, and get rid of the ridiculous moniker, Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. You see that? What is Trump doing getting involved in these matters? Ultimately, he's an Edomite and he's the devil. And really, it's to constantly put down the children of Israel. Because remember, it was a time where Jake was getting offended and they pushed for that name to change. And it changed. And it's been away from the Washington Redskins name for years now. Now Trump gets in there and says, no, we need to change that back to Washington Redskins. Guess what? Redskins is a derogatory term on the North American Indian, the so-called. All right. As a matter of fact, let me get this from DeepSeek. Right? Redskins term was derogatory against Native Americans. Yes, the term Redskins has long been considered a racial slur and is deeply offensive to many Native Americans. And guess what? Native Americans are also so-called Americans, all right, on this soil. They're citizens. And yet you have a sitting president coming on and saying, change the name back to Washington Redskins, to a derogatory term, to a racial slur. All right, he don't care because, once again, he's the devil. And that's why we keep telling you, the so-called white man, those that go back to Esau, Edom, are the devil. Okay? It's in their nature to be evil. The scriptures say the wicked are estranged from the womb, meaning they're profane from jump. They're wicked from jump. Okay? It says the word is originated during a time of violent colonization and was often used in a demeaning and dehumanizing way. But yet you have the sitting president right now saying that's changing back to that demeaning and dehumanizing term. Why is it offensive? Historical racism. The term has roots in the practice of bounty hunting, where native peoples were hunted for their scalps, referred to as Redskins, and yet, they had a whole team behind that. A whole team behind this name. I was seeing if they had the actual logo on one of the pictures. I thought they did on one of them, but it's too wild. You can always look up the old Redskins. Matter of fact, let's do it. Let's do it right now. Why not? See, Redskins logo. Of course, the the one that we're used to is the one right here on the right. Let's clicking on it to see if it comes up. Uh-oh, there's another article. I'm just now seeing this. It says, are the Washington Commanders bringing back Redskins logo? All right. This this is updated December 6, 2024. All right. The Washington Commanders dropped Redskins from its name and retired a controversial logo after protests against racial injustice erupted across the country in the summer of 2020. However, there is now talk that the team is bringing back the old logo, which features the profile of a native man with long hair and two feathers. The logo will be featured on alumni shirts sold later this year. However, a team spokesman told Newsweek there are no plans to bring the logo back. All right. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee last week approved advancing legislation funding the revitalization of the decrepit RFK Stadium. All right, stadium site, because that stadium, that thing is falling apart, man. That thing is falling apart. We drive around it all the time, and you see rust around it. I mean, that thing is falling apart. But I think it's by a little military installation, and it's a lot of stuff around that area. It's right off a bridge, and you name it. It's a lot of stuff in that area. A lot of businesses over there. Eastern Market. If brothers know what I'm talking about, you can always look it up. There's a lot of stuff in that area. So if they were to bring it back in that area, it'd be booming over there. Okay, even more. All right. But that goddamn stadium is falling apart. And look, you can see it. All right. It says, Montana Senator Steve Daines has said he would block the legislation until the NFL and Commanders honor the old logo in some way. All right. Block it until the NFL. Come on, man. It says Daines said he was now in favor of the bill because the Native American family credited with designing the old logo was satisfied with the team's efforts to honor Walter Blackie Wetzel, the family's patriarch. See, that's Esau for you. That's Esau for you. So let's get that back, and let's get that old moniker back. Let's get the Redskins title back, and let's further push a racial slur, or where the term even came from in the first place, and constantly throw it in Native Americans' faces. And you got a lot of Jakes that are in Judah, Benjamin, and Levi saying that we were already here. Hey, the natives were already here first. That's who was here first. And some Native Americans look like Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. But the Native Americans that were already here were those that came over by way of ship a long time ago. Back in the, what if I'm not mistaken, the 8th century BCE, talking about the 700s BCE, fleeing from Assyrian captivity. That's the time frame when they came over here. The Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans didn't come over here until when? The 1600s? Okay? All right, so yeah, our people were already over here, but the tribes had different times. I mean, you may have had remnants, small remnants, a few here and there that happened to go with the what we know as the northern tribes to come over here, just like you had some of the northern tribes stay behind in the Roman Empire. So you probably had little pockets, absolutely. But we're talking about for the most part, okay? For the most part, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the so-called Negroes, okay? They didn't come over here until what? The 1600s, all right? By way of slave ship. But yes, our people, yes, hey, the Gadites, Reubenites, the Native American Indians, okay, so-called, they're still our people. And yes, you can say we were over here. Yes, you can. All right, but you know, a lot of you Jakes, you still think it's a separation between us and the Native Americans. It's not. They're still our brothers and sisters, man. All right, you'll rock a Redskins logo, put on your jacket, put on your hat, you'll rock it, all right, not knowing what it goes back to, the term Redskins, what it goes back to, okay? They may have the picture, okay, but with the picture is going to come the name. They're not going to have the picture without having the name Redskins with it, all right? It says, well, there it is right there. I didn't have to go look. I knew it was going to come up eventually. We've had good discussions with the NFL and with the Commanders. He said there's good faith negotiations going forward that's going to allow this logo to be used again. Perhaps revenues going to a foundation that could help Native Americans in sport and so forth. We're making good progress, and based on the good faith negotiations, I made the decision support. I made the decision. It said to support this bill. Decision to support this bill. Okay. Think they should put a 2 in there. All right, now this article actually goes back to late last year, so they never forgot. They still stayed on it. Going to this one, Monday, July 21st. Right? They didn't leave it alone. It says let's see, moniker. I won't make a deal with them. Right. Now let's read this one. The organization left Washington for Landover, Maryland in 1997, but D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and the team announced a deal in April to bring the Commanders back to the district at the site of the old Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium. Trump touted the deal at the time, but the proposal is stalled before the D.C. Council. Speaking to reporters last week, Bowser urged the D.C. Council to make moves on the deal. Yeah, because she don't give a damn. She don't give a damn about you know, the term being called back to Redskins, because Mayor Muriel Bowser, she's a demon. She's a Jake woman, but you know what? She could be a tear. Okay, she could be a tear. All right, but she don't give a damn. You know, she's just about pushing things for the city. All right. It says because you know the whole so-called Black Lives Matter thing that was down there in D.C. Trump threatened funding for DC, and she had them tear it down. That whole Black Lives Matter exhibit, she had them tear it down quick. And it took millions of dollars to tear it down. All right. It says to make moves on the deal, adding that the Commanders are anxious about it. The council is holding the first of the public testimony hearings on July 29th for the stadium redevelopment plan. Trump expressed openness earlier this month to helping out if the DC Council does not approve the deal. It's a great piece of property, so we'll see. But if I can help them out, I would. The federal government ultimately controls it, Trump said. In the late 2024, lawmakers in Congress passed a bill to transfer ownership of the RFK site from the federal government to the district's government. The owner is very, very successful and a very good man, Trump continued. It will be a great place for the NFL to be there. I can tell you that. All right. But guess what? He's like, look, change the name back to the Washington Redskins. I'm just jumping down. Earlier Sunday, the president initially referred to the football team as the Washington Whatevers and urged the owners to immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. CNN has reached out to the Commanders and the D.C. mayor's office for comment on Trump's post. Trump's Sunday comments went further than ones he made earlier this month when he told reporters the commander's name should be changed back to the Redskins, something he acknowledged was a controversial statement. It doesn't have the same ring to me. What difference does it make? You see, but this is a Caesar Trump. Okay, this is dictator Trump. I'm putting my hand in everything. I want to rule. It says, but winning can make everything sound good. So if they win, all of a sudden the commanders sound good, but I wouldn't have changed it. All right. So you get the gist. You get the gist. I want to go back to the scriptures. I want to get Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And go down to verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. And that's even, the northern tribes, so-called Latinos and Native Americans. You already know the Southern Kingdom is catching it. You already know that. You already know that we're getting all types of derogatory names. All right, even the Northern Kingdom, the Northern tribes is catching it. They've been catching it for years. They've been catching it for a long time. But the face of it is the Southern Kingdom. And now you see what's going on with ICE and everything that's going on. Northern tribes are catching hell as well. All right. Derogatory terms, derogatory names. Y'all people need to go back to your lands, get out of our country. You're not citizens. They're catching all types of hell as well. All right. You're not Americans. Stuff like that. When they were actually here first, they're catching hell as well. And they're being called all types of derogatory names and bywords. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee, to include, the other so-called Indios tribes, all right, which we know as the so-called Native Americans. You're a proverb and a byword, Redskins. All right, there's more derogatory names for so-called natives. All right. Shit, Native American is a derogatory name. Your name is your Israelite nationality is Gad. Okay, Gad. Reuben. These are your biblical nationalities. So anything else really is a proverb and a byword. Okay, it's the reason why I keep saying so-called black and so-called this. Right? It's so-called. Right? See, this was going to jump on you, and Redskins is a derogatory term towards you. All right, so let me go to drop that. We got Redskins. The term has roots in the practice of bounty hunting, where native peoples were hunted for their scalps, referred to as Redskins. It reduces diverse indigenous nations to a racial caricature. Yeah. Native American groups, including the National Congress of American Indians, have campaigned for decades against its use in sports and media. Why? They campaigned for decades. A decade is 10 years. So decades with an S for this to be changed. So it changed in 2020, but guess what? They want to have it back. Now, this is Merciless Indian Savages from the Declaration of Independence, right? Yes, the phrase merciless Indian savages appears in the Declaration of Independence in 1776 as one of the grievances against King George III. This dehumanizing language reflects the racist attitudes of many colonial leaders toward Native Americans and has been widely criticized as an example of early systemic discrimination. It says, this is the full passage, right? He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. And this is coming from the so-called white man talking about the natives in this land when they came over and raped, robbed, murdered, pillaged, and sent diseases all over. But this is what Esau thinks of you. All right? This is what Esau thinks of you. See, the northern tribes, y'all been chilling for a minute, man. Y'all, of course, you've been catching hell, but you've been chilling. It's time for you to get this work so you can see that you're being oppressed as well. Okay? Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad. You need to get mad. You need to see that what you are in is not your rest. All right? It says, purpose. The writers blame the British for allegedly inciting native nations to resist colonial expansion, framing them as brutal aggressors. Hypocrisy. While accusing native peoples of violence, the colonists themselves were actively seizing indigenous lands through warfare and broken treaties. Everything we said before. That's hypocrisy. And they had the nerve in the Declaration of Independence in 1776, right, of America, to put in there merciless Indian savages. Okay? Dehumanization, labeling native peoples as savages, denied their humanity and justified violent displacement. It justified violent displacement because you're like, these are savages, so we can get rid of them. See? The accusation ignored the fact that many tribes were defending their homelands from invasion. So if they defended their homeland from invasion, they were called savages. Oh, they're brutally killing people left and right, but they were defending their homeland. And they were being called this. Shows you that Esau's the devil. Okay? Shows you that Esau is the devil. And they had nerve to scalp natives and have a racial term, Redskins, on a lot of natives that was just defending their homeland. It's time for the northern tribes to continue to wake up. And you will wake up if you're destined to wake up in the Lord's time. But the men of the Lord have to constantly keep pushing out this work so that what? It can reach the eyes and ears of the elect so that they can what? Fulfill their lot and wake up. So we got to keep doing the work for the purpose of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. You got to wake up and realize that you yourself were oppressed just like the so-called Negroes. Okay? This is Jeremiah 50 in verse 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah, that's all the tribes, were oppressed together. And all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. So we were oppressed together. When you go into oppressed together, it also means oppressed alike. The word there is yahad, union, unitedness, together, all together, alike. We're oppressed alike. Never forget that. Alright? Time for you to turn back to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua V'Hashem HaKadosh. Alright? I'll go ahead and end it on that call. Haloyim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders, a great millstone, peace, and shalom to the elect. As always, I say, double shalom.